Welcome back, Mando.
Greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tagar. Welcome to our 293rd at-and attaining episode of Mandovision. I'm your host, Narguy Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. It is once again Mandovision After Dark, as we record late into the night of the release for the next episode of Skeleton Crew. So please keep that in mind. I've tried to keep the gain raised on the episode, so hopefully everything sounds great volume-wise without me having to be super boisterous. So we're going to do our best. All right, friends? Again, glad you're here. Make sure you're hitting us up on the socials, by the way. Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. Just Mandovision if you're at Blue Sky. And you can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, friends, as I said just a few minutes ago, we are here for the 7th episode of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. And let me tell you what, I had a blast with this episode. Super, super fun. Several moments where I gasped, where I laughed out loud. Just a really well-done, action-packed episode with like that wonderful balance of adventure and humor. But now with the stakes rising as we return to Ad-Aden, and our heroes find their way home, but the pirates find their way to the treasure. And we're going to talk about all of it. And it's really exciting to see the way this episode starts with our friends united, now on the same page. They've kind of put their issues behind them. They've gone through adversity, and their friendship is forged in the fires of a new Onyx Cinder, shiny and sleek and new, and they rocket home aboard it. Super, super fun. So let's go ahead. Let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into it. This is Star Wars Skeleton Crew Season 1, Episode 7. We're going to be in so much trouble. Original air date, January 7th, 2025. This one directed by Lee Isaac Chang, who's done some work on The Mandalorian. And returning to the writer's room is Christopher Ford and John Watts. All right, Bucketheads, I think it's time to get into it, and you know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets, and let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off.
You're going to have to relocate the covert.
This is the way.
This is the way.
So in case I didn't hammer it home enough in our last episode, one of the best things at the end of that episode, as it comes to its finale, is our friend groups coming together, right? You know, we started the show, and for much of the duration of the season, it's been two groups of friends forced together. But now, at the end of episode 6, they are one group of friends working together. We saw that with the way they assumed their roles aboard the Onyx Cinder to save their ship from that incinerator droid that was threatening it. You know, KB runs off to the engineering. Neil and Fern in the cockpit. Wim runs off to the gunner room. You know, no one questions anyone's spots on the team anymore. It's all just they're there for each other, and it's reflected in the shiny and new Onyx Cinder that you know comes out of the remnants, the broken hull plating of the old ship that was that was the disguise of the original Onyx Cinder. And it's lovely to see that carry through at the beginning of this episode, so that the kids are running through the ship, having a good time, having fun. But that's not where the episode starts. The episode starts back on Ad-Aden with Wendell, Farah, Numa, and KB's parents attempting to launch a buoy beyond the barrier to get a message to their kids. Well, as we've seen before, the security droids on Ad-Aden seem to be pretty aware of just what is going on more often than not. So security droids surround them. take turns stunning each parent as they try to run away with the communication buoy, ultimately landing in the hands of the last parent standing, Afara, who takes it and is able to get far enough away from the droids that she's able to launch the buoy up into the atmosphere and hopefully to make it past the Great Barrier to send a message out to their children to keep hope alive. And that's where our credits come into play. Now, this is when we cut to the kids having fun on the ship. Again, two friend groups united as one now. And the only one not seeming to have a good time is Wim. He seems like he didn't quite get the adventure that he wanted, and he regrets putting that button all together. And he seems to be sad about the fact that once they go back to AT-AT and it's back to business as usual, he hasn't taken his assessment test. There's no way they're going to be able to keep this ship. These kind of things are weighing on Wim. And as I said, he seems altogether to regret pushing the big button that began the adventure in the first place. But in a moment, again, to show the solidarity that these friends now have with each other, they all take turns reassuring or assuring Wim that they are, in fact, glad he pushed the button and they got to go on this adventure. Meanwhile, our good friends, the pirates, arrive. Jod, still a captive of them. Brutus, tolerating Jod to a certain extent. But Brutus wants results now. He wants the treasure planet right now. He doesn't want to deal with anything. So as soon as they arrive and they see the barrier, they assume that AT-AT is this hazardous waste dump, basically, that it's toxic, that anything that tries to enter there will be poisoned and killed and destroyed. And they're not wrong. But again, Brutus incorrectly assumes this is AT-AT, and Jod, being who he is fast talking the entire time, swaying anyone who'll listen to him that this is a decoy. It's camouflage. It's to protect AT-AT and to protect the treasure planet. And so they decide to launch a ship into this green, volatile, nebula-looking kind of thing. They're much too spherical to be a nebula, let's be honest, but you know what I'm saying. And who is the volunteer? That poor guy who wanted to be like a kelp farmer or whatever. Not gonna be able to live that dream, unfortunately, as once he enters the atmosphere of what they believe is AT-AT, he perishes. He perishes. We see some sort of electrical discharge, and he's a goner. So the Jod's temptation of buying his own ocean, that's out the window for that poor guy. Not gonna happen. But again, this is what Jod does. Jod is continuing to fast talk the pirates, and again, there's a defensive grid around the planet, but he's trying to assure them that if they can figure it out, then they will get to AT-AT and the hordes and hordes of treasure that he's been promising. And luckily, just as he's making this plea, who should arrive but the Onyx Cinder, the newly revealed Onyx Cinder. And Jod quickly realizes that ship is the key because it has been on AT-AT. And so they bring the ship aboard, and they fire the tractor beams, bring the ship on there, and, well, it gets interesting from there. Because, of course, the kids don't, they're not checking the scope. They don't realize that the pirate frigate is behind them in orbit around the barrier. So they're tractored into the ship. They are scared because they're kids, but they try to come up with a plan, right? They try to come up with some intimidation tactic, and they use that giant grappling claw. We finally see that put to use to grab Brutus and to kind of like hold him as a hostage so that they can kind of like negotiate, barter their freedom, right? Well, Jod takes it out of their hands by killing Brutus, who's in the grasp of the claw. So now Jod resumes his role as Captain Silvo and takes back control of the pirate frigate. And he knows that there's just kids on board that ship. So he comes in there, or he sends the pirates in there, I should say. They capture the kids. Now, Jod has figured out that the Onyx Cinder is the key to getting into AT-AT, but he doesn't know how. He figures there's some sort of device that there has to be on the ship. So he wants them to find it, rip it out, and put it into the frigate so they can take the frigate down to Ad-Aden. The kids, meanwhile, are being held prisoner. They're in a chamber, a room. And this is when the buoy that the parents launched rises out from the barrier and begins to transmit the message. And so the kids hear the parents' message, and it sort of kindles some hope in them, because I think they have sort of gone to a place where their hope is low, but they are hopeful when they hear the voices of their parents, and the parents giving them instructions, but also giving instructions to the pirates. Now, it's a coded message in the sense that, like, it doesn't outright come out and say, hey, here are the coordinates to Ad-Aden. Here are the things you have to do to get past the barrier. No. The parents are being respectful of the rules of which they have learned to live by on Ad-Aden. And we find out through the message that the kids were supposed to find all this stuff out about Ad-Aden after they graduate. So some of our initial theories from the first episode about there being like dark conspiracies in place to keep Ad-Aden in the shadows, not necessarily true. At least not to maybe the extent that maybe we thought they would go. It's more of like a known secret amongst parents that Ad-Aden is a hidden world. So yeah, no direct coordinates, no ways to get past the barriers, but they're instructed to find a Republic emissary who will know how to navigate around the barriers. So again, showing another piece of information showing us just how out of touch they are with the galaxy around them. And this information doesn't necessarily help the pirates, but it does inspire the children to make a bold gambit as Wim yells attack, and they try to fight adults, and it doesn't go well, but it opens up an opportunity for Fern to try and lay claim to the ship once again, because Silvo is now captain of the pirate frigate, so he can't be captain of the Onyx Cinder at the same time. Now, Silvo, knowing what the kids are going to do, places a hand over Wim's mouth before he can lay claim to the ship. So he tries to claim it for himself once again, but Fern calls unclaimsies and claims it for the children, which he believes can't happen. But SN33 decides it's close enough, and then in one of the first moments where I laughed out loud, he just lays out Silvo on the floor, and it's hilarious. So now Fern's back in charge, SN33 is back with them, and she orders him to kick those pirates off their ship. And that's exactly what he does. And then they fire up the Onyx Cinder, and they take off out of the pirate frigate. Meanwhile, the other pirates, they don't know what's going on, so they don't re-engage the tractor beam, but they decide to send some ships down there to follow and try to reacquire. And we're navigating our way through the defensive grid. Now, just before the Onyx Cinder takes off, Silvo wakes up. Silvo, somehow, someway, wakes up just in the nick of time. And we'll find out how that plays out momentarily. But yes, so we see the defensive grid, and we get the information that we need from SN33. Like, the brilliance of Takranid's plan to navigate to Ad-Aden was that Takranid stole a ship from Ad-Aden, knowing that it would be the only way to make it past whatever defensive perimeters they had in place. So the Onyx Cinder has always had the programming to come and go from Ad-Aden to get past the barrier and to land safely on the planet. Now, this does call into question some things that we have heard about Takranid and the Onyx Cinder as this legendary sort of pirate vessel. And it makes me wonder, have there been other ships called the Onyx Cinder? Because I couldn't imagine Takranid keeping this ship as his sort of, main pirate vessel and plundering the galaxy from it. It seems like a bit of a stretch to have a ship from Ad-Aden for so long to build this reputation. I'm curious if we'll get some answers to that. I suspect we may in the finale, but we'll stay cool until then. We'll play it cool. But yeah, I have some questions about the legend of Takranid now, knowing that this ship is originally from Ad-Aden. And I still want to know how long ago it was that Takranid stole this ship and made his way to Ad-Aden for the ship to get buried in the ground for so long and remain undetected for so long. Again, hopefully these are answers that we get next week. So with the help of SN-33 and the Onyx Cinder, our friends are able to navigate through the defensive perimeter, and they arrive, and they see At-Aten for the first time from orbit, and they know that they're home, and they're excited, and they think they've done everything they need to do to get home, save their planet from the pirates. Not so fast, my friends, because as Fern says, we're going to be in so much trouble. Our friend Jod, Dash, Mad Captain Silvo, the man of many, many names, makes his presence known. And it's not going to go well because SN-33 comes back. He's going to go defend those kids. But the lightsaber engages. And in another moment where my jaw opened and I gasped, he severs SN-33's head from his body. Is this the end of SN-33? It seems likely, but anything's possible. I still feel like this droid might have some tricks up his sleeve, but we're going to find out. Though it doesn't look good, and that's a shame because I really enjoyed SN-33. Let's hope they pull one. They have an ace up their sleeve for him to make a grand return in our finale next week. But yeah, here we go with Jod, and as we have been instructed from the jump to not trust Jod, we see the way he betrayed the kids, but now we see Jod is like not a nice man at all. Like he was playing along with those kids to get what he wanted, but now that he is in charge and he has the lightsaber, he is not to be trifled with, and he had no qualms whatsoever talking about how he was going to cut them up into little itty-bitty pieces, and then he includes their parents because that's what he took away from that message. He now knows what their parents look like, so he can now threaten their parents too. And the fear, the intimidation of this grown man to these small children, it kind of got me angry. I was angry. I was really hoping the kids would try to do something, but again, they're kids. And Silvo points out to them. He calls them weak. He calls them cowards. He calls them spoiled children. And he really goes after Wim quite a bit in this tirade of his. And it really, if it doesn't make you dislike the man, if you were holding out some hope for Jod's redemption, that he's not the bad guy in this story, I think you are sadly mistaken from this point moving forward, because this very clearly shows us that Jod has been the bad guy all along, and any sort of redemption will be hard earned. Let's put it that way. Like, I don't want to say it's 100% not going to happen, but it seems insanely unlikely at this point that there's any way for Jod to turn himself around. And we're going to have to see how it goes, because again, there's still a lot about this character that we just don't know. And how much information do we get? Do we get some sort of flashback to begin the episode next week that kind of shows us more of his background, how he was sort of molded into who he is now? Or does it stay ambiguous? I'm sort of curious if they decide to go that route and sort of leave it to potentially a second season or some other media that could exist out there to tell Jod's story. But he's taking control of the ship. He can't contact the pirates because of the barrier, so he's trying to think on his feet. The ship's on autopilot. It's going down to the planet, and as they make it onto At-Aten, he assumes the role. The droids, security droids, assume he is a Republic emissary, so he just leans into that, and they're going straight to the vaults. Like, why muck around? You're here to get a shipment, right? So let's just go straight to the vaults. It's what Jod wants. It's what we've been wanting to see. This, once we learned it was an old Republic mint. So we go down deep into the surface of At-Aten and see this minting facility that is below the surface of the planet. And it is vastly impressive. I have no idea how it all works, but there are many, many, many thousands of vaults, 1,139, all full of freshly pressed Republic mints. And the scene where Jod just sort of lets the data just fall over his head as he laughs maniacally in a very Uncle Scrooge-esque fashion in a sort of money bank kind of situation. I did enjoy it quite a bit. Meanwhile, the kids reunite with their parents. The security droids said they were going to contact the parents. So the parents have come down to the vault. They're reconnecting with their kids. Also, Jod, still trying to get in touch with his pirate crew and the frigate so they can haul all this treasure away, wants to get a message out past the barrier. The security droids can't do that. So Jod is trying to get together so we can meet the supervisor. Now, we've heard the supervisor's voice, and he sounded human. He didn't sound piratey, but that's not to say that he's not a pirate. So, could it be Tack-Rented? I suspect we're going to find out, get answers to this next week. But he seemed all too receptive to the idea of a Republic emissary arriving. I would imagine if Tack-Rented was the one calling the shots, he might be a little miffed that after all these years, a Republic emissary has shown up mysteriously in his old ship, if it is Tack-Rented. We will have to wait and see. Again, for reasons we still don't know, Jod doesn't want to deal with the droids. He seems, pardon me, rather relieved that he can address the supervisor instead of negotiating with droids. We'll see if there's more to that next week as well. Perhaps we get some answers there, perhaps we don't. We'll have to wait and see. But as the kids reunite with their parents, Jod makes his way out of the vault. He sees this wonderful, heartwarming reunion, and it makes him violently ill. At least I imagine that's how he feels in his soul. Because as we close out the episode, Jod kind of does what he told the kids, what he kind of warned the kids he was going to do. And that is he ignites the lightsaber one more time, giving us the impression that he's going to start carving up kids and parents alike. It seems like a bad choice since those security droids are so nearby, but makes for a stunning cliffhanger to wrap this episode up on. Again, we have a lot to look forward to in the next episode. This episode, much like last week's, was on the shorter side, like 30-ish minutes, but wonderfully paced. A lot happens in the 30 minutes. I enjoyed it from beginning to end. I love our kids united as one friend group now, and how they are able to support each other and be there for each other now, as opposed to before when they were not united, when they were not one friend group but two friend groups. So the progression of the characters has been wonderful. Seeing Jod sort of, I don't want to say he's spiraling necessarily, because he's probably always been this way, but to see just like how much darkness is in the character is very interesting to see, because I mean he really lays into the kids in this one. And like I said, if anyone was hoping for some sort of redemption tale for him, not so much. But this episode again continues what we talked about, in our second episode review. As much as the show is sort of hyped as a Goonies thing, like it's really been leaning into that, like that Captain Hook and the Lost Boys kind of Peter Pan-esque tale, and I've really enjoyed that aspect of it. I think it's really been hitting home, and I think you can really, if you didn't see it before, I think you really see it now. You really have to be able to see it now, and it's been a delight. So how will it wrap up? How will it go? How do we put a bow on this first season? We have to wait one more week to find out, and it's going to be a doozy, my friends. I can't wait to see what happens next. It's been a great season so far. Really enjoying the show. I hope you guys are all digging it as much as I am. It's been a hoot. A real hoot. But yeah, of course, there are some questions I still have about certain elements of the show, but let's give them until next week to see if we can get a little bit more clarification on some of the points, like some of the things that I brought up today. Let's see if we get those answers down the road. Otherwise, 9 buckets for this one. It's a gem. I loved it. I think it sets the stage really nicely for what's to come. Again, our child heroes are reunited with their families. They're back on At-Aten, but Jod's there. But Jod's all alone. So let's see how this plays out. And let's see what other answers we get moving forward. But yeah, 9 big, bad buckets for this one. I also loved, by the way, not that I didn't mention it, but I love that Silva donned his helmet once again, like he did in the first episode. And that's probably what saved him from getting a broken jaw when SN33 lays him out. So I like that little touch of him kind of reassuming his mantle as he took back the captaincy of the pirate frigate. So again, just nice little things throughout the episode. I've only watched it the one time. Watched it after I got home from work tonight. Then came over here to record the podcast. So I can't wait to watch it again. I'm going to watch it at least one more time before next week. Probably two. And we're going to have a nice chat about the finale. So let's go ahead and close this puppy up. I want to thank you guys, you wonderful, wonderful members of the Buckethead Army, the Buckethead Nation out there. Thank you for your continued support of the show. So glad that you guys are still out there supporting the show after all these years. Really means a lot to me. Reach out to us on the socials, Mando_Vision, Twitter /X and Instagram. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. We are on Blue Sky at Mandovision. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. A great way to support the show. Sweet 5-star reviews. They truly help small independent shows like us stand out and not get lost in the shuffle. Thank you for anyone who takes the time to do that. And anyone who just takes the time to download and listen to the show. Thank you a bunch. I truly appreciate every single one of y'all. And again, excited for next week. We got a great Star Wars show we're watching right now. And I hope you're talking to all your friends who maybe aren't Star Wars fans, or maybe they're like on the fringe. They like some things in Star Wars, but maybe a couple of the shows came out recently they weren't maybe enamored with in the same way. Get them to Skeleton Crew. Get their kids to Skeleton Crew, and let's get more people watching this puppy because this has been a fun ride. Really have enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see how it all ends next week. It's gonna be a blast. All right, Bucketheads, we're getting out of here. Go out there and continue Go out there and continue to be great Star Wars fans continually, forever and ever and ever. All right, Bucketheads, we're going to talk next week. But until then, remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature and deliver it to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.